Hello, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the next session. Thank you very much, first of all, HEL.PE for inviting me to the symposium. My name is Miguel Palacios, and I am the Associate Dean for Executive Education at the Madrid campus of ESCP Business School. ESCP Business School is a full-fledged business school that, among other things, has a number of programs in management and energy management. And I guess this is the reason why I've been invited to moderate this session. First of all, I would like to excuse myself for not being in Athens. Due to COVID and the current situation, travel is a little bit complicated, more complicated than usual. There are much less flights, and from Spain to Athens, it was a little bit complicated to go there, so my excuses. Today, we have a session on new technologies and innovation advancements in energy markets. It is powered by the Energy Delta Institute, and we will have a number of speakers. Most of them will be online like me, but I imagine some are presential. I will start naming the speakers first, and then giving the floor to the speakers one by one. So as speakers, we have Marcel Kramer, who is Energy and Infrastructure Consultant and President of the Energy Delta Institute. I guess we have to thank him especially because Energy Delta Institute is powering this session. Then we also have Maher Chebbo, Chair, European ETIP, Digital Energy Group and Digital Batteries Task Force. We also have Spyros Kiartzis, Manager, who is on site, Manager, New Technologies and Alternative Energy Sources, HEL.PE, Gianfranco Scalabrini, Partner, 3H Partners, Professor of Energy Markets at Guido Carli University, and Nikolaos Chathyagiru. My excuses because my Greek is not very good. Academic Dean, Executive Education, Full Professor, National Technology University of Athens. So welcome everybody to the session. I will give the floor for 10 minutes. First, each of you to talk about the topic related to your job. And then we will open it up for questions from the audience or certain questions that we may have among the speakers or myself to the speakers. So let me start with Marcel Kramer, Energy and Infrastructure Consultant, President, Energy Delta Institute. You can probably introduce yourself much better than I can do, but I just wanted to pinpoint one specific thing. Is that my impression is that you have your feet in two worlds. So you have partially your feet on the academic world through some of your academic experience in teaching in different programs, and then you have another feet in the business world, specialized and related to energy, and then you've had this dual perspective for a long time. So it's great to have people with this dual perspective in the panel. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words, Miguel. Very happy to meet you, very happy to meet the other speakers, and of course, great to see that this good conference is again taking place. I too regret very much not being there in person for many reasons. The people, of course, the opportunity to personally connect, And on an early day, the first day of October, this is a time of the year where people in Amsterdam, where I live and speak from, particularly envy the Greek climate. So you add all that up, and I would rather have been there, but this is where we are. I'm pleased to join, and I thank you for allowing me to be a small part of this, what I think is outstanding agenda of the conference. You've covered enormous grounds, particularly those of you who have been through the entire conference so far. And I think it's a bit unavoidable at this stage that I will touch upon some of the topics that you already discussed. I hope there won't be too much of a duplication. And I thought, since I'm not a technical expert in any way, I've learned a few things as I went along, but essentially I call myself a lost lawyer. Allow me to take a bit of a helicopter view. Now, I of course realize that helicopter as a word has Greek roots, so maybe this is quite appropriate today. My first point really is that energy supply in general has a number of crucial parameters or criteria in order to be functional on a large scale. We all know that it needs to be safe. It needs to be continuous and widely available. I think we call that security of supply. It needs to be reasonably convenient, and it needs to be affordable, which these days is a hot topic, as you know, since many around the world are very concerned about high energy prices. They were less concerned last year, by the way, when they were so close to record lows. We have short memories in this business from time to time. But high prices do have an impact on not only natural gas and power consumption, on places where people struggle to pay their energy bills, and on government budgets. And last but not least, they have an impact, if they are prolonged, for sure, on innovation as well. Something to think about even when we believe that this may be just a spike that will be over soon. We will see. All these parameters, these requirements for success in energy are demanding, and they create challenges for new development and for innovation. Can the new solutions that we strive for meet these criteria? In many parts of the world, the realization of the potentially threatening impacts of climate change has given, of course, as we all know, rise to policy changes. These and the drive to maintain relevance as a business, and if you want a social license to operate, have created and continue to create a very strong push on many fronts for innovation and what we call greening. Shareholder views vary, but there are important cases where corporates are being put under significant pressure to do more than just put what I could call a green label on their current products. And banks and other financial institutions, as you have also discussed during this conference, are joining the chorus for innovation and a greener world. So here we are with an array of actual advancements, great progress in some areas, many initiatives, I'm still not sure about that, projects and plans. And many governments are ready to lend financial support in one way or the other. There are so many areas where this is taking place. Of course, electrification, especially, but not only in mobility, solar, wind, biofuels, hydrogen, in all its different colors, I would say, and also in the world of the actual gas infrastructure and gas industry, where one is working hard on greater efficiency and new technological developments in the hydrogen area, but also in the gas area itself. Think about the floating and onshore small-scale LNG developments and bunkering for shipping, a subject which is also very topical, I know, in the Mediterranean. And then there's digitalization and blockchain that offer great opportunities for new efficiency, but often have important structural consequences and consequences for people, organizations, and companies that are not always, I think, fully understood in advance. And in addition, some of this requires a lot of real energy supply as well. So in some of the areas, significant success has already been booked. And at the same time, I believe with, I think, many of you in the audience, that the growth spurt that we are seeing, this boom of activity from thousands of startups around the world to major corporations, has made us realize that there are obstacles which are not easy to overcome if we want to keep the pace of innovation. There are a few examples to be mentioned here. Bottlenecks in power supply. They're important. They really inhibit the progress that we want and are able to put in place. Expansion often is not only costly, we're talking about billions of euros across Europe, I would say, but they're also very time consuming with permitting processes, planning requirements, etc., etc. Then there is the technical and logistical raw material question, the issues around that with geopolitical implications. For example, in the areas of battery supply, will we be able to manage a vastly expanded battery supply that we need, something which is efficient, geopolitically and strategically reliable, and leads to a cost level which we all hope is acceptable for many more among the consumers. There are issues of scale. Each value chain indeed needs to be developed. And even if there are a few real technical challenges, think of hydrogen, which in itself is not a new and particularly complex area, although it has its challenges. The key question is, can we move that from what is essentially an industrially oriented product to one that is used on a much larger scale, and where pricing is such that consumers are happy to embrace it at many different levels. There's another issue which is not much talked about, but which I'd like to raise here, and that is that the fragmentation of energy supply and demand management, where a vast array of suppliers, partly also due to liberalization of energy markets, and a vast array of new end users, all have to play a growing role in a way that avoids that peak loads become a major problem and that average pricing is acceptable. There are obstacles in policy, there are obstacles in regulation. Many of the innovations run into challenges with practical implications because they are seeing that the rules of the game are not quite ready for what they are ready or developing to apply. System integration, power, molecules, in a liberalized and more fragmented market is perhaps more difficult than in the old days, but then we weren't thinking about that so much. Security of supply, yes, an issue, I already mentioned it. And then Kostas in the previous session, hello Kostas, great to see you again, mentioned the skills requirements, and you discussed that in the panel. We at the Energy Delta Institute are very, very busy trying to do our modest bit to help this along. It is not easy at all, even though I have to say that the digitalization helps us a little bit because the reach of development programs, of courses, etc., is of course greater than it's ever been before. In conclusion, the struggle for improvement, as I sometimes call it, towards cleaner air and limiting climate change risks is well underway. There's a lot of progress on many fronts, but the timelines for successful technical and commercial innovation in energy and for changing our infrastructure on a large scale are often much, much longer than many realize. Certain breakthroughs are possible. Yes, we've seen them in the past. I'm holding one here. But can we count on that when it comes to reaching the targets that we are all subscribing to? And as that struggle for improvement goes on, we do get the occasional reminder that the energy supply of the past, as some people call it, is perhaps likely to be the energy supply for much longer than some would like to predict. So, working for the change we want is perhaps more a persistent balancing act than a great leap forward. That's my conclusion. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to any questions you may have. Thank you.
So thank you very much. We will leave, if you don't mind, questions for the end of the panel. So I think you really provided a helicopter view, what you promised at the beginning. So thank you very much, because you provided a very comprehensive view of all what is going on, very much related to what has been the conference so far, and obviously to the previous session that was moderating Costas, that I profit also the opportunity to say hello through this channel. Well, next we have a slightly different guest speaker. So Maher Chebbo is the chair of the European ETIP Digital Energy Group and Digital Batteries Task Force. I would say, if I had to define Maher, I mean, if I have to say, there's one person who knows everything about digital and energy in Europe, I think that's Maher. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
It's fine. It's fine.
I think that's you. I mean, you are in all the European consulting groups. You're in one of the companies. Digital and energy, it's you. So we hope that you live many years and that we can live with your knowledge many years. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Look, it's my pleasure to speak here, and sorry for not being in Athens. I'm actually participating in an event here in the south of France, where there is also a lot of responsibles and politicians about the energy transition. And I just finished, and now I'm on time to present my few slides. So here we go. So I will be speaking about 3 topics: digital energy transition, batteries transition, and digital buildings. So what's in common with all the cities? They are looking for decarbonization, and they are looking for energy efficiency, while in the same time, they put in place programs as well for sharing energy among the citizens and sharing the energy around all the consumers. We speak a lot about energy communities as well. They are looking for new technologies, how the digital and the artificial intelligence can make the life of every citizen today much better, can improve the energy infrastructure, can put more programs for them in their buildings when they consume energy, reduce their bill, and then offer new opportunities with technologies like the batteries. Now, there is a number of regulations that push us some. There is in France a tertiary degree called the degré tertiaire. The objective is in 2050 to have 60% energy efficiency compared to today. European degrees, the objective is to have 250 carbon neutrality. And there is also in China a lot of things also coming from the COP 2015 commitments and other commitments. Now, we predict as well that the carbon tax will be around 130, 150 euros per ton CO2 in 230, and probably in 250 around 300 euros. So that counts as well to push the people to go through the energy transition. This is why we see a lot of money, whether it's in the Green Deal, And part of the Green Deal, there is like 30 to 35% dedicated to climate and energy. We see also good initiatives in the Innovation Fund, where there is a larger scale and small scale, few billions dedicated as well for all the technologies that decarbonize, and things on the batteries, on energy efficiency, and IoT, and so on. I have put few numbers here just for the sake of interest of people. Now, we worked, and I have been one of the co-founders of the European Technology Platform Smart Grids in 2005, and then continued to participate in the ETIP SNET, which is SNET stands for Smart Networks for Energy Transition, and where we produced reports that are different. In 2018, they are different compared to 2005 because when we started 2005, we were very much electricity and electrical networks, and now we understood that we need to be convergent. We need to look at the whole picture of energy, how we can optimize the heating, the gas, the electricity with the presence of the storage, okay, and the importance of the digitalization coming in. This is what we have put in our report 2050. And as I co-chair now the working group on the digitalization of the energy, we produced also a couple of detailed and less detailed reports where we have put a number of recommendations on how the digitalization can help. So everything which is around predictability, this is what where our energy infrastructure, for example, requires to transform. Predicting when equipments in power plants in networks are going to fail. Predicting when wind turbines, for example, are going to fail, and predicting also the energy that will be produced from the conventional and from the renewable, while predicting the weather in the same time, and so on. You see technologies around digital twins, simulations, the importance of having platforms. For example, the TSOs, transmission system operators, worked, about 40 TSOs work on having like a platform that could facilitate the life of the TSO's business. Industrial IoT platform, Internet of Things, which means you put sensors everywhere on the equipment, you collect the data, you run it through programs, and then through these programs, you can better predict the output of these equipments and the asset health of these equipments. And I have mentioned also on the right side the importance of preparing, educating also people, adapting to the regulation, but also the integration, distributed energy sources management systems integrated with the grid. Now, we speak for the transition about 3D traditionally, and I have added a 4D. 3D means decarbonization, digitalization, decentralization. And of course, we are shifting from the thermal cars to electric cars. So today we have more and more pressure on the networks because we need more load for the electrification of cars. And then the 4D is about democratization. It's very easy to put in place, smart grids and few electric cars for few people. It's very difficult to make it available in a democratic and a simple way for everyone. And that 4D is important. That led us in the ETIP SNET to work on the idea how we could have a kind of a one-stop platform that would be the Amazon of energy, where the user anywhere in Europe could have an access to the energy suppliers and to the energy services and other related services without thinking and being involved in the complexity of the systems behind. So the telecom operators have succeeded to take the complexity of the users to integrate their systems between the Nokia, the telecom operators, the other equipment vendors, and so on, and the retailers. They take the whole complexity, all the stakeholders came together, and then they made it easy for the user at the end to order anything he wants. We want to make the same thing here by integrating between the ones who make the operations, the ones who make the planning, between the ESCOs, retailers, aggregators, TSOs, and DSOs. Now, speaking about the mobility, and in my role, my second role as a chair of the task force digital of the ETIP batteries, we see between the green side and the digital side things that are in common here that listed on the slide, like the traffic management, like visible access to cities, for example, like management of parkings, like automated driving. A company like Mobileye, which is an Israeli company, has been acquired by Intel for 15 billion because they have developed the software for autonomous driving. So for these areas, in the task force I'm driving, and there will be a report issued. We are finalizing the last elements on that report, but I can give you here some of what we have put in it. We describe the value chain in which we have two sides. We have the whole improvement of the manufacturing of the batteries, from the R&D and the ideas and how the digitalization can help with that. And second thing is we have the batteries in usage. And this is what you see here before the end of this value chain, how we integrate the batteries in usage with the rest of the electricity systems. How we integrate it with the TSOs, with the DSOs, with the power generators, with the vendors. And then how we consider all the information that we have about how the batteries lived, and we call that the battery passport. And how we could recycle the batteries as well, that we are not creating problems, rather than saying, you know, okay, all the cars now become electric, but in the same time, we are creating things polluting from metals, aluminum, lithium, and so on, that would come from batteries if we don't recycle them. So the recyclability is very much important. We defined a number of use cases for the digital batteries. Battery passport is one of them. A lot of artificial intelligence as well that can help forecasting, for example, the level of the batteries and how they could be used in flexibility. So when the battery is put in place, it improves very much the flexibility. First of all, none of the renewables could run like this without batteries in place. So it's really an important piece, part of the whole picture. We define budgets that are estimated budgets for research and investment needed, the impact, the feasibility, and also key performance indicators. And then, of course, a few numbers as well about the number of industrials who came together to focus on this business. The European Investment Bank, loans amounting to 1 billion in 2020, about 5 billion in total. The jobs that we created, and also how that comes as part of the overall focus on renewables and the jobs created from renewables. Now, I spoke about digital energy transition, digital batteries, and now I would like to speak about the digital buildings and the building transitions. Today, if we look at buildings, they contribute to 25% of the emissions globally. So if we look at the HVAC part of the buildings, this part is less developed in terms of production, storage, whatever, is less developed than electricity and gas, but it counts for 55% of the building's consumption. It counts for 75% of the building's emissions. So there are two technologies. On the left is using digital and software, where you could manage, monitor with sensors all the existing HVAC equipments and the buildings to get 10 to 40% energy efficiency and also CO2 reduction. And you have other technologies here that I know well, that are called low carbon buildings or eco-district buildings, where you store the lost energy and the abundant energy from excess energy from solar. In Greece, you have a lot of sun. When you have a lot of sun and you have also lost energy, like fatal energy, you take it, you store it at 100 meters in geothermal interseasonal storage, and then you use it when you want to heat during the winter. That the software can size it and then can monitor it permanently, that you have at the end 70% energy efficiency and 90% decarbonization. The headquarters of Airbus in Toulouse is 100% in terms of heating, ventilation, air conditioning covered by that technology, and the software is monitoring all of that. And you have also, in terms of monitoring the buildings, just monitoring the distribution part of the buildings, you have cities where you have about 10 to 40%, like the city of Roubaix, schools, administrative buildings, and city hall, and others. These are the numbers that I mentioned. So here we are really continuing the value chain from the network, talking about storage. I spoke about storage and batteries. This is storage in terms of heat and thermal heat, and also we can store in the ice. And these are the benefits of it. If I compare even now the way we should look at the transition in buildings, the same way Elon Musk, for example, with the Tesla is monitoring the batteries, it's the same way as well here with the software. So you will upgrade the software in the cloud, you will monitor that buildings, you will monitor the distribution above the surface, you will store things like a battery below the surface with the interseasonal geothermal storage. And exactly, there is a lot of things in parallel. The difference is short-term on the lights on the left side and long-term storage on the right side. To finish, we need to go through the 4Ds that I spoke about, but we need to understand exactly the needs. We need to enable to develop from the use cases I mentioned to pilot them, to test them, to see the return on investment as well, to see the maturity, feasibility, and so on, measure the value, and then we need to scale up very quickly. So we need to have a plan, which is after the piloting, after the prototyping of things, we have tested them, how we could scale up massively. And for that, we need as well to think about the models for financing and taking a responsibility in the results. So the models we should promote, besides financing these projects, are also outcome as a service, where depending on the results, the vendors who are putting in place these solutions would get paid or not paid. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Maher. I think it was very interesting. So we had a first speaker, Marcel Kramer, that put in place the main challenges in a helicopter view and the main issues, and you narrowed on 3 issues that are very important, and additionally you pinpointed an element which is important, which is the possibility that everybody has the same opportunities in this context. That for us Europeans, it's important, the democratization and the possibility that people have the same possibilities. Also, I think an issue, the issue of security of supply, that is one of the critical issues of the future with renewables, that with batteries somehow you could eventually solve. So thank you very much. Now we have another speaker. It's very interesting, this roundtable, because the speakers are very different but very complementary. So we have Spyros Kiartzis, Manager, New Technologies and Alternative Energy Sources from the Hellenic Petroleum Group. So this is a large oil and gas corporation, and within a large oil and gas corporation, he's one of the experts responsible for the new things outside gas and oil, I imagine. So I don't know, you're probably on stage, presential.
Correct.
I give the floor
Miguel.
to you. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you too. Can we upload the presentation, please? Because there's a small presentation. That's great. Okay. Let me, first of all, thank you for the invitation. And I want to give you the perspective of the petroleum industry and generally the energy industry that is now combined, because I think petroleum or dedicated industries coming, let's say, power from coal or from other things, I think, thank you, belong to the past. Now we have new energy groups that want to, let's say, include every aspect of energy into our options. So the world is changing, and is changing fast. Why? Sometimes we are obliged from outer reasons like political pressure, or because we want to change our business model. Some things are becoming obsolete and we are moving. We're having energy transition, which give us huge opportunities on new issues. The capital markets and they are also coupled with the political pressure and all this ESG focus, give us opportunity to attract money that want to be invested in green energy. And of course, all this is accelerated. There's a new speed in all these things due to the pandemic. Of course, these energy transition challenges have key issues to be addressed. There are a lot of uncertainties in the framework. Issues like technological maturity or debottlenecking problems in technology or in engineering or in scientific issues have to be considered. Of course, there is a risk in investment. In the previous session, there was a discussion for PPAs and how we are not mature enough to face new financial tools, but we're working on them. We believe on the new issues, and hopefully we will overcome all this risk. And of course, there is time pressure. We have new mobility concepts, and these new mobility concepts make us to adapt into this new reality. Electrification of mobility is an imperative. As you can see, we have the electrification of the fleet. That is combined also with new storage technologies. Apart from vehicle to grid as an approach, we have also storage of renewable energy. And of course, what we need is to have renewable energy to feed all this mobility. Otherwise, it's useless to burn coal and produce electricity and use electricity in electric cars. That's something that is not accepted. Of course, renewable fuels are very close to the existing infrastructure we have. Excuse me. We need advanced biofuels that can be achieved, for marine and air transportation. It's easy to electrify, let's say, light vehicles, but it is really hard to use batteries to travel by air. Of course, feedstock is a great quest, and this great quest has to do apart from the cost and also to the sustainable criteria for this. As a result, waste is one of the major inputs we need to treat them to produce renewable fuels. As an example, a lot of traditional petroleum companies of the past have now turned into using hydrotreated vegetable oil as a feedstock for renewable fuels, like Neste, or later Eni and Total here in the Mediterranean basin have already modified former petroleum refineries into new biofuels and biorefineries. And of course, green hydrogen, which is the superstar of the current period, it is something that we are going to use in the future. Today, we have to spend a lot of money and a lot of knowledge and technology in order to incorporate and advance it. We need green electricity for electrolyzers and produce green hydrogen. That's a prerequisite. And of course, later on, we have to see fuel cells in vehicles and generally the use of hydrogen in transportation. We should consider that hydrogen can be used in 3 areas. And these 3 areas is industry, transportation, and for thermal use. Today, the vast majority of all these things is dedicated in the industry. And we should look industrial use of hydrogen, of green hydrogen or blue hydrogen, whatever will be used in the future. Of course, you should have a great question mark, why a guy from a petroleum industry is dealing with all these things? Because petroleum industry and oil and gas generally is diversifying into low carbon energy. There are huge companies in the areas that they are moving into into renewable electricity, into biofuels, in e-mobility. And of course, there are even companies that have switched directly from petroleum business down to renewables. The refining business is something that is moving toward a new situation, and we will be an energy hub in an industrial cluster. And there's a very nice word. In Greek, we call it symbiosis, and it's the same also in English. And this symbiosis is the combination of all these energy transactions and interactions between various industries in the same cluster. For us in Hellenic Petroleum, it is crucial to transform, and we have a roadmap for this. For 2030, we want to reduce by 50% our emissions, and we have an ultimate target in 2050 to reduce it almost down to zero. And how we want to achieve this? Of course, using tools to improve our energy efficiency, to have cleaner fuels in refining, to use renewable energy, and of course, green hydrogen and blue hydrogen combined with carbon capture and sequestration. Apart from this, we are doing a lot of business in EV charging. We develop infrastructure in our petrol stations and in various other areas. We adopt sustainable feedstock for our refining units, trying to use waste or used cooking oils and so on. And of course, in the concept of circular economy, we try for our petrochemical plants and also as a feedstock to use plastics and close the loop in the use of this area. Here you can see what is our target for the next years, meaning the next 5 to 10 years. We want to turn our Elefsina refinery into a new model of refining with very low carbon footprint. And this will have to do energy improvements, deployment of blue hydrogen, of green hydrogen that will be fed from a dedicated 10 megawatt solar energy project. In the end of the day, we are heavily investing on renewables. And this is not only a trend. And this is not only a way to survive. This is the concept we have as a company. And we are working hard on this. We have a renewable energy strategy with a very ambitious target of 2 gigawatts to be installed by 2030. And of course, an intermediate target of 600 megawatts by 2025. And believe me, we're going to achieve it. What we want to do is to have all these new business portfolio, which will include renewables, will include hydrogen, will include energy storage, huge energy storage projects, will include e-mobility applications, and in parallel with our core business, which is refining. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I think it's very interesting. I think you provided a perfect example of how a large corporation with a traditional business in oil and gas is reacting proactively to the current setting, and it's transforming itself very fast through acquisitions, developing new technologies, and perhaps optimizing and changing their current portfolio refineries. So thank you very much for this perspective. Now we have, I would say, a completely different perspective, I guess. So Gianfranco Scalabrini, partner of 3H Partners, professor of energy markets at Guido Carli University, and he's also an affiliate professor at the ESCP. And I say it's a completely different perspective because it's a person who is very much used also to working in startups. 3H Partners is an established consulting firm, but it's a startup in itself, developed by university professors, pretty successful across different countries in Europe. I know several colleagues who work there. And also, I mean, he participates in other startups. So I think we were provided a little bit with the perspective of the large corporation. Now we have a little bit the strategic perspective, but also seeing it with the eyes of somebody who is very experienced in a startup. Thank you very much, Gianfranco. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Miguel. After, if you can upload my presentation, after the brilliant picture given by my colleagues about the mega trend of the innovation, I would like to manage how the big corporation, the big energy companies are managing the innovation in the COVID era. So what is really happening? In particular, what is happening, the first step to understand what is happening is setting the scene. No? We have to understand the perimeter in which we are working. If you look at ourselves in the way in which we behave, in which we live, which we work, you can see that we are in front of what is called new normality. No, there is something that is changed, probably with a no return trend. No, something that is different now, but not only for the COVID pandemic, but for a trend that will be speed up by the COVID pandemic. So a trend ongoing before the pandemic was stressed by COVID. The trend is that only the innovating company can survive and succeed. I cannot see my presentation. I don't know why, but if it is not available, no problem. We go ahead. Okay. So the COVID-19 pandemic positioned the innovation of offering and business model as the basis of resilience. In particular, energy companies are massively following these trends. So in a trend where all the companies are trying to innovate, energy companies are following this trend. In particular, to intercept the best innovation opportunities, energy companies are speeding up an open innovation model on three different pillars. The first one is the integration and inclusiveness to target the right challenges. So it is important that all the functions, all the divisions that contribute to the innovation are aligned in the objectives. That typically is something that you don't find so commonly in the big corporation. The second thing is the openness to the outside environment to overcome traditional biases. The second issue is what I call not invented here syndrome. Everything is not invented within a company, typically is pushed back. And opening to the new ideas, in particular cross-sector, something that could come from telecom, could come from insurance, and I can extend to the energy sector, in this moment is really useful, really successful. Third thing, capability of involving internal resources to leverage all the diffused knowledge. In the companies I experienced there is a lot of knowledge, but unfortunately this knowledge is not concentrated, and typically is not concentrated in the innovation division, in the innovation function. It is in all the division of the company. So the effort to catalyze this knowledge is fundamental to be successful in innovation. These big companies created what is called the idea factories. What are the idea factories? The idea factories are a sort of innovation center within these big companies. In particular, idea factories are collaborative groups organized to solve complex issues with creative problem solving. The problems and challenges are carried on to the idea factories by the divisions, by the stakeholders, and these stakeholders are actively involved day by day in the problem solving, in the creative solution generation. Typically, idea factories recruit professionals with very different background. I have seen in some companies, I don't know, philosophists or advertising expert involved in the idea factories. Why? Because of the lateral thinking. Because now also the traditional businesses, as energy is, are opening themselves to the lateral thinking, to try to spin the ideas with a different angle. Idea factories suit the desired innovation as their objective align with the need of energy companies. In particular, they use a 5 points, a 5 topics framework. First point, they push creativity to the new normality. So let's try to convey all the creativity present in the company in order to face this new normality. So don't think in a traditional way. Don't think as the word was 2018, but we are in a new normality. We are in 2021. And many companies are realizing, are understanding this point. Second, move from workplaces to innovation laboratories. In the morning, I don't sit in my desk, but I sit in my innovation laboratory. I have to think in a creative way, day by day, hour by hour, in order to improve my daily activities to face this new normality. Third, promote cross-functional integration, no silos. And the silos is one of the weaknesses of the big corporation, because if we work in silos, typically it's very difficult to apply what I call connecting the dots strategy. So to put together all the big opportunities that we have within a company. Fourth, leverage creative tools. I have seen in big corporation using, I don't know, Lego serious play. That is something that started as a play, as a game, but at the end, it was recognized as a tool to facilitate, to push the creativity to the new normality. Last but not least, the fifth, move from ideas to actionable projects. So be structured in pass from ideas to opportunities to actionable projects, because otherwise we have tons of fantastic presentation in PowerPoint, in videos and so on, but no innovative project on the field. To reach their innovation objectives, ideas factories articulate the creation problem solving into 4 main phases. The first phase is clarify. We have to identify the perimeters. For each challenge, we have to understand which is the real perimeters. And I can seem very, very simple in my speech, but believe me, many times the issue of the problem solving is the problem definition. The perimeter is not so clear. Second step, ideate. Creativity from outside in. So let's try to bring every experience you have seen in your private life, in another sector, in television, in something that you read, in your daily job. It seems strange, it seems peculiar, but believe me, I have seen it working very well. Third one, development. Rationalize the ideas. It is fundamental that the ideas are not genius and unrules, genius and craziness, but we need to convey the geniality, the creativity within a very structured process. Fourth, implement. It is fundamental to transform every single opportunity in an action plan. Energy companies typically perform these face these 4 targets in 3 different innovation steps. The first innovation step is support analysis development. So what they do, they frame the new normality and they frame the issues within this new normality. After that, they pass to the definition of the sub-challenges, what they call core challenges or must-win battle, so the field where they have to win, and they codify the strategic initiative to win these battles. They focus on the new needs brought by the new normality. Third innovation step, first feasibility analysis of selected initiatives. Because the idea of these idea factories is to bring on the field all the ideas without filter. Only after the first step, they filter these ideas with a sort of pre-feasibility analysis to have a short list of the ideas that could also be opportunities. But at the end of the story, the important thing is this end-to-end process that I try to explain you without slides is a little bit more complex, is not static. It's something that is in a never-ending evolution. So we have to test the new process on transformation projects on the field, and we have to try to learn from the field what is working and what not. What is not working should be changed continuously on the platform. And this is another liability that I found in many big corporations. Once they have set the process for the innovation, the process is given, and only the innovative ideas will change. No, also the process, also the laboratory, also the framework has to evolve continuously over time. In particular, I can mention the experience that I have done of a big multi-utility group that decided to enter in, that through the Idea Factory, decided to enter into health services for the physical person, B2C, and very small companies, what is called SOH, small office, home office. They perform the 3 steps, innovation steps, step 1, 2, and 3 that I mentioned before, in this way. Innovation step 1, what they have done, they developed 50 ideas generated and prioritized based on the job to be done analysis, vivid and latent needs linked to the new normality. What they could improve, what they learned they could improve. Not working only to the economic sustainability and distinctiveness, but also job to be done ideas solved. So we have to focus on the final customers, not only on the sustainability and distinctiveness of the idea. Second innovation step, what they have done. Team developed the list of the hypotheses to test, the testing protocol to test the hypothesis on the field, and the KPI to measure the success or not of each single hypothesis. What worked well and what could be improved? In particular, worked very well the approach of the test, but they, as a bias, the bias that they have is they continue to test as a pilot. So a full static launch of the final solution, instead of applying what is called lean testing. Lean testing instead is an iterative approach where you test decoupled each single business hypothesis in order to understand if the solution is consistent or not with the new need, with the new normality. Third innovation step, the team tested the opportunities.
Gianfranco, sorry
Yes.
for interruption. You're closing, no? More or less.
I am closing. Last one.
Okay, thank you.
The team tested the opportunity in 3-4 days for each iteration, and in 10 to 15 weeks overall. What worked very, very well? They acquired the mentality of the fast failure. So if I identify something that is failure very fast, this is a success because I save a lot of money. Thank you, Miguel. I finished my presentation.
So thank you very much, Gianfranco. So I think it was the perfect closing for the roundtable, your presentation. So we had from the speaker side. So we had first Marcel Kramer provide the helicopter view of what is going on, what are the new trends, and what are the new needs coming from the Delta Institute. Then we had Maher going on some details on some of the issues that were very specific: batteries, digital, buildings. We had the Spyros talking about how a large company is doing it, but then you enter into how to make the elephants dance. No, you enter into the issue of how do you do this for real? How do you do the organizational change, the structural change in companies to link these innovations that are taking place in the market and introducing these innovations in the companies themselves? I think you went down to the details on some of the structures, the open innovation structures. Sorry, but I love a little bit this theme. I created myself a business plan competition that has developed over 200 startups. So it's related to this. So I love this issue, and at the end, as you mentioned, Gianfranco, this is a process. So it's a process where you have open innovation structures, you have change management to be dealt with at the companies, and it's not an easy process. So now we have some time for questions, not much, but we have some time for questions. I don't know if there are questions from the audience, either online and offline. If you can pass them to me, it would be great. But I have a first question for the panel. Whoever wants can take the question, and it's related to what has been presented in the past, in past panels and through the conference. Energy prices have increased very recently. They were very low in the past. There is certain volatility in the market, although there may not be this volatility in the future if prices remain high. But under this, innovation symbolizes taking risk. And for taking risk, innovation symbolizes also failing. For that, you have to have some pocket, some money. So how do you see the money coming? Gianfranco, you were mentioning all these structures. Well, these structures take some time also to produce results. So how do you see the funding issue of all this future?
Typically, in my experience, a great part of the money that you need to invest are the money that you save with fast failure identification. I bring on the table a couple of examples. In the past, before many years before the pandemic, I worked for a big company that decided to create a new CRM system. This new CRM system was the love of all the structure worked on it. And they invested many tens of millions in order to create this CRM system. At the end of the story, they decided that this CRM system was completely useless for the final market, but they understood it only after the piloting. And the piloting arrived at the end of the story. If they would identify the fast failure after 3 months or 6 months instead of after 2 years, probably out of 30 million, 40 million that they invested, they say they would save the 25 or 30. This 25 or 30 is the investment for the innovation, in my experience.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other opinions from the members of the roundtable?
No, I mean on the risk taking. If I may, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I was listening to the Minister of Economy here in France yesterday. He said the following. He was making a panel at the event I'm attending here in Paris, in France. So he said the story of the Moderna, the guys of Moderna who are innovators went to the investors in Europe, and the investors asked them the question. They said, you know, if you work on research and development for the ARM messenger vaccination, how much money would that bring? The answer was either zero or infinite. They did not invest. So they went to the US, and finally it was infinite. A lot of companies, Amazon, Facebook, would have not existed if there was a traditional way for the investors to look at their innovations. So we need to look not only the traditional way to how much I put, how much I get. You need to look at the full picture. You need to look long term. You need to see the character of disruptivity that the technology could be bringing, and of course, take risk. If you don't take risk, then you are not an investor. You are just a banker. And a lot of our innovations here in Europe, there are different ways to stop them at the right moment before you spend a lot of money, either in pre-studies or in studies or the design phase or even piloting, before you go ahead and you spend a lot of millions. Okay, so that's also reducing a lot the risk. That's also reduced. I see it, for example, I was the president of the European Smart Metering Association, ESMIG, for 4 years. And most of these projects, the customers have done the pre-studies, studies, design, piloting, and they could change the vendor and the technology after the piloting phase to somebody else. So this is what EDP, for example, has done. And then they changed from a big name, big solution, and so on, to another one, which is a smaller company, Energy Works, for implementing cloud meter data management. They were with Siemens before, for the deployment to 9 million customers of smart metering.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wants to take an answer?
Can I, Miguel?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, that's okay. Anyway, business or entrepreneurship or innovation include risk. They also include a philosophical approach. What Gianfranco said before is, in the innovation, you don't know where you are heading, but sometimes you have to take the risk. And also, Maher said the same. And this reminds me the philosopher, ancient philosopher Plato, and the Plato's cave. There were prisoners that were locked in this cave, and there was only a fire, and what they could see is the shadows due to this fire. They could believe everything only on the shadows, which was not the reality. And what they had to get out of this prison, this cave prison, went to the sun and see the reality. That's what we are doing in innovation. We are innovating and we are trying to find our sun and see the new reality. Unfortunately, there's only one drawback on this. Sometimes when we go out of the cave and we see the reality and the real sun, not the shadows of the fire, we are not prepared for this. And we're afraid of this, but we are not. We're innovators.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Marcel,
Yeah.
do you want to?
Yeah. First of all,
your company is. This is powered by your company. I don't know if you want the closing participation on this one.
We appreciate the opportunity to be present and to support this in a small way. But I just wanted to, first of all, say I'm delighted to hear again the story about the cave and the shadows. The last time I heard it was a professor when I was studying law here in Holland, and I can tell you many decades ago. It's still very appealing and very true, I think. Secondly, risk management and innovation. If you look at the energy field, a lot in this area has to be done within companies which are essentially highly regulated. The post-liberalization era in Europe is now well settled, and a key question for many of these companies is really whether they have become what I would call so domesticated and caged by well-intended regulation that going out of the cave may not be so easy for them and may not be rewarded, at least not in the near term, because of the regulatory approach of networks. So that's just a side issue. There are many others who can also move this whole area forward. It's not just the regulated companies. But I do hope that in a very good dialogue with policymakers and regulators across Europe, we manage to provide the stimulus for getting out of the cave. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. You introduced, as always, with your 2 feet, the helicopter view with the regulators back in the picture, which is important. Thank you very much. Well, I mean, this panel, it's always a pleasure to moderate this panel because we are talking about the future. Well, in some cases, the present. But I don't have Plato as reference. I'm sorry. I don't have a... I have a more recent. The future is the place where we all are going to live. So it's very interesting, and I'm very interested from the future. I thank you very much for keeping the time, more or less, for providing with this interesting view about what is going on. And I think we've come to the end of the presentation. We started a little bit late. We finished also a little bit late. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, the audience. Thank you very much, HEL.PE, for inviting us. It's been a real pleasure, and we hope we are all presential next year there in Athens. Bye.